Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Bobby Borg, music marketing for the DIY musician, creating and executing a plan of attack on a low budget. And of course, my number one goal is to help you turn your art into a more successful business. Let's go ahead and start talking about company branding. This is one of my favorite topics. And you know what? I'm going to read you the definition of company branding directly from my book because I don't think that this guy could have said it any better. Okay. All right. So company branding is the process of presenting clear, unique, relevant, believable, and consistent messages about your organization with the intention of exceeding fans' expectations and leaving a long-lasting positive image in their minds, okay? So one thing I want to be clear about is that there's a difference between what's called a brand identity and a brand image. A brand identity are the things, the messages that you put out there, right? And a brand image is the way your customers perceive you. Now, if you put out the right things, in other words, if you put out messages in a way that are going to be perceived by your target audience in the same way that you hope, then you are going to be successful. But if you aren't aware about what you're putting out there, then your messages are going to kind of be wishy-washy and people are not going to really know or have a clear idea about how to perceive you. And the brands that are the most successful are the ones that are the most clear. Okay? So that's a very, very important concept. So the first thing that we're going to do when we are looking at our branding is we want to actually go ahead and start off creating brand identity tools. And the first thing is to choose a brand company name. And when I say company, of course, I mean your band, your solo act, etc. All right? So you might ask, is a name really, really important? And I say absolutely it is. I mean, it's if you have a horrible name, and we certainly know a lot of companies out there that have bad names and are still successful, it's not going to kill you. However, a better name is going to definitely help you, okay? So the first thing that you want to do in the best case scenario is create a name that's going to reflect or say something a little bit about what it is that you do. So think about the name, let's just say, for example, Rage Against the Machine. I mean, it's pretty obvious what they do. They rage against the man, they rage against authority, they rage against the government, and so on and so forth. And it presents a clear image in the mind of the fan. Let's look at Marilyn Manson. I mean, that's a really, really cool marriage of two names. Marilyn Monroe was a beautiful movie star. Charlie Manson was a notorious facilitator of murder. You put the two together and you basically have glamorous murder, which is essentially what Marilyn Manson is, So in other words, just through the name, you're already creating an image in the mind of the customers. Let's move on. The next thing is creating a brand logo. And a brand logo is going to be very, very important because that's going to be the symbol that you're going to put on your bass drum head. That's going to be on your backdrop. It's going to be tattoos on fans' arms. It's going to be stickers, patches. It's going to be the thing that you put on your hat or on your shirt and you sell it to your fans. So a cool, clear logo is very, very important. And some of the cool logos out there that are very, very successful are like the Misfits, skull logo. That's a very, very popular one that you see all the time. Another one is the Rolling Stones tongue logo. A very simple one is the 9 Inch Nails logo. So there's a number, Wu-Tang Clan is another very, very famous one. So make sure that you come up with a very, very cool logo. And I would say to go as far as even hiring a professional to make sure that you get it done right, okay? The next thing is on page 79, I talk about actually creating a brand slogan or tagline. And sometimes this is also a really, really helpful way to help you convey your brand. Now notice how in every segment I say, hi, my name is Bobby Borg. I'm here to help you turn your art into a more successful business. It makes it clear about what it is that I do. The benefit obviously to you is that you want to turn your art into a more successful business. And it also clearly verbalizes what it is that I do. So if you can do that in a way that's cool and not cheesy, let's just say, for example, and it works for you, definitely a logo, a cool slogan could actually be very, very cool. So definitely consider that as well. All right? All right, the next thing that I want to talk about is the possibility of maybe having a spokes creature or a mascot. Now, there are a lot of bands in metal that have like, you know, the mascot, like, you know, Eddie, you know, for, you know, Megadeth, right? You know, there's a number of different, is it, Jesus, who is it? Iron Maiden, my bad. And you know, there's just so, in metal, you'll find that this exists a lot. However, Kanye West also had, you know, the bear as a mascot as well. So a lot of different genres can use mascots. And essentially the idea behind a mascot is it takes a little bit of pressure off of you. You know, in other words, it gives you a little bit more of a personality. Now, originally mascots were used for companies that had no personality. You know, so for example, selling insurance. When you sell insurance, what kind of personality do you have there? You have nothing but, you know, white tile, floors and fluorescent lights and so on. There's no personality. So what do you do to give it a personality? You give it a little, you know, Geico lizard that's going to walk around, and now all of a sudden the insurance company has a personality. Now, in the case of the music business, you know, artists have a lot of personality. So a mascot necessarily isn't 100% important to do, but definitely it does work for a lot of groups, and you might consider it for yourself, okay? Then you want to consider your brand personality as well, and that is your attitude. In other words, how are you going to act in the press? How are you going to come off? Are you going to come off as a bad boy, a gangster, somebody that's, Christian and believes in God? Or, you know, what is the attitude that you're going to display to your target audience and put out there? It's very, very important that you're actually clear about that. How are you going to dress? Are you going to dress up very, in well-tailored suits? Or are you going to, wear all dresses like Lady Gaga did and try to be fashionable with big hats and gloves and that type of thing? So again, very, very important to think about this, because this all conveys a certain image in the mind of the customers, okay? Also, associations, associating yourself with other brands. You know, what musicians do you get to play on the record? You know, and I've got a really great story about that. Some friends of mine at Berklee College of Music wanted to elevate their careers, so what did they do? When drummer Vinnie Colaiuta was coming in to do a clinic, they paid to get him to play on their record, and immediately it elevated their career because now Vinnie Colaiuta is playing on their record. And the way people perceived them was like, wow, you know, Vinnie's on their record, they must be great. So you see the concept that we're talking about here? So associate yourself with the best producers if possible, the best managers, the best studios, the best quality to help convey your image in the minds of the customers, okay? And then finally, there's a concept called positioning. And essentially what positioning is it's now taking all these brand identity tools, wrapping up in a ribbon, and really kind of defining what it is you do. So in other words, we might be able to say one thing and we know it's you. So let's do a little bit of a test real quick. 5-octave vocal range. Who am I referring to? Mariah Carey, right? How about a hard rock rap band with a political overtone? Rage Against the Machine, right? How about this, rap group or really hard rock rap group all about pot? Now you might say a couple different people, but Cypress Hill, right? And then let's look at one more, traditional Irish music fused with punk rock. Flogging Molly's, right? Or how about this one? I'll do one more. 3-chord power rock with a schoolboy guitar image. AC/DC. So you see what I'm saying? I mean, in other words, that is their position. It's the one thing that defines them among all of the other acts out there. What is your position in the marketplace? Okay? So this is the concept, again, of company branding. It is so, so important to your career, so give it a whole lot of thought. My name is Bobby Borg, and I'm here to help you turn your art into a more successful business. The next thing we're going to talk about now is product branding, which is different from company branding. Okay? So hang in there, and we'll get back to you in a minute.